Welcome to This Is Whole Life, a podcast from the Whole Life Church in Orlando, Florida.
Join me, Ken Wetmore, lead pastor, and Melanie Bachman, our worship pastor, along with our communication team, Randy and Lucas. Take a look back, a look deeper, and a peek into the week ahead.
Here we explore meaningful conversations about spirituality, community, and living with purpose.
We don't have all the answers, but we are walking the journey together.
Wherever you're listening from, you're wanted here.
This is Whole Life.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 506 of This Is Whole Life, where as always we dig deeper into the message each week here, and hopefully in the process we learn to love God a little bit more and in a more meaningful way together. This year, as you already know, we're in greater things, and we need you in the conversation. Last week we had a ton of comments, we had emails, we had text messages, and it's always more fun. Jessica mentioned how much fun she had on it. So, Jessica, also, just if you're listening, thank you again. It was a pleasure to have you aboard. As always, 407-965-1607, voice or text mail, and podcast at Whole Life Church. I know, scratch it, white boy. We want to hear from you. So join the fun. Also joining the DJ in the house this week is, as always, it's Melanie Bachman to my left, across the table. To my right, Ken Wetmore, lead pastor. Lucas is back this week to my left. He is the second half of our comms department, and I'm Randy. So today is spicy. This is Whole Life. Eros.
Spicy.
Dr.
All right.
Dr. Ken.
A couple thoughts went running through my head there, and I decided to edit them all in a very unusual moment for myself.
Dr. Ken Westheimer here to talk to you about...
Sadly, Randy's not editing, but that's okay. All right.
It was, there's always that little kid inside of you that's just like, snicker.
So are we putting out a warning like, listen to this before you listen to it with your kids in the car? Is that what we're doing?
No, I don't think you said anything that needs even
We're only
this
10
week.
seconds in.
Yeah, but you did great this week. Not that I was surprised. I'm just saying it. I thought you
a little surprised.
You said PG,
Did
I said PG-13 and you said no. You said G. I thought it was.
Keep it between G and PG? Yeah.
I thought you came dangerously close to the razor's edge.
Okay.
And now...
At what point?
Song of Solomon.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, maybe tell us more about what it's like in another language, because you're like, it's pretty tame in English. So like, how much did they tame that down for us? A lot? You think?
Yeah, a fair amount. Yeah.
And so, because I think people tend to think, you get to that and people, I don't know, growing up, it was like, that book didn't exist in the Bible.
Yeah, no, it's not generally a preached on book of the Bible by very often. Maybe around Valentine's Day sometimes if it's just...
Actually, it's not really recommended for a Valentine's Day source of inspiration. Your teeth are like a flock of goats. That sort of thing doesn't
not
the
today,
flow
Melanie,
for the,
but back then that was
a thing?
that was like
a flock, a goat.
That's like.
He said my teeth were like a flock of goats. I think I'm in love.
Word.
That was pure glaze back in the day. That was Riz.
I don't know what that means, but I think it slaps.
I don't think I know anything that I said right. So hopefully.
We don't actually know what the rating is on this podcast.
That's why I said, do we want to put out a warning to listen to it before you listen to it in the car with your kids? We don't know.
Ellie, Kyla, we're going to count on you guys to let us know what these mean, because I'm not really sure. Well, we started off. Now, see, I'm so glad we have the Slack channel, because Erin was in the Slack channel early and she had a question. And then later she's like, I think I need to take this a little bit further. And then somehow it came to you, right? No, I was in the Google Voice. That's where I found it. So Aaron asked, is Eros equal sexual attraction or under the Eros umbrella, if there is such a thing as Eros being an umbrella term, with a smile emoji because she's not sure. I don't know either. Or would it rather be that the chemicals that you referred to in the brain that fire when a human feels Eros are the same ones that make humans feel sexual attraction? This sounds like biology.
Read it one more time for me.
Does Eros equal sexual attraction or under the Eros umbrella, if there is such a thing as that? Or would it be that the chemicals that you referred to in the brain that fire when a human feels Eros are the same ones that make humans feel sexual attraction?
Well, I'll just say that based on how you described it in your sermon, I think it can be more of an umbrella term because it can also be not necessarily a romantic attraction. It can be other kinds of attraction to beauty, attraction to these kinds of things. So maybe that's one aspect of it.
Well, I think before I did this sermon, I kind of had the idea that Eros and the word erotic were kind of very connected. And the more I researched this topic, it was a lot less that way, actually. Eros.
That's where the word comes from, though, right?
It does, but it's not as a lot of, well, one theologian, C.S. Lewis, described like the idea of erotic is more in terms of what he would call Venus rather than Eros, which Venus was the god of love and that sort of thing. And at least that's what I'm saying off the top of my head. And maybe I ought to look this up while I'm
No,
here,
you mentioned, I think I wrote that down, that you wrote that.
Let's, can we go all the way back to the question, just start over with that question one more time?
Hey, you want to read it? Would that help?
That probably would.
Yeah, right off the top there.
So am I going to read it out loud?
Yeah, read it out loud because I think it'll help.
Okay, is Eros equal to sexual attraction or under Eros umbrella, if there is such a thing as an Eros being an umbrella term, or would it rather be that the chemicals that you referred to in the brain that fire when a human feels Eros are the same ones that make humans feel sexual attraction? So, Aaron, great question. Eros is kind of a larger term, and it's kind of this idea of seeking beauty and the love of beautiful things and the desire to have those things. So the idea of sexual attraction can fall underneath that umbrella,
Okay.
but it would be wrong to say it was the umbrella. It would be a part of it. It could be a part of that, but it isn't the actual umbrella itself. And so
Gotcha.
when you only take sexual attraction, when you equate Eros to sexual attraction only, you're missing out on some of the larger nuances of the word as well. There's more to it than that, that's what I'm trying to say.
So, because as soon as you say sexual attraction, then that makes it sound like it's only, and maybe that's just
because Eros, you could have in a Greek's mind, you could have Eros for a piece of art. So you could see a landscape painting and have Eros for it. Obviously, obviously there wouldn't be sexual attraction to that. But it is a desire to have it. It's beautiful. You're attracted to it. So probably for me, the best word for Eros is attraction. That in English, it's the closest thing that for me that would kind of get to there. So because attraction isn't necessarily does not necessarily have to be sexual in nature,
Right.
Because we've all had people that we're attracted to, not in a sexual manner, but as a friend, or we're like, oh, this person has an interesting viewpoint and I'm attracted to that and I'd like to get to know them better. It has nothing to do with sexuality or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the same thing is true with looking at beautiful art. We're attracted to it and we think, oh, that's beautiful. So for instance, you could even have Eros for a sunset or a sunrise. You could have that. So it really does come down to this kind of attraction towards the beautiful and kind of the desire to possess that, to have that in your life and to hold on
like
to
coffee.
it. Well, you know what? That is, in your case, Randy, a very powerful metaphor for Eros.
Yeah, Eros.
But for the record, we use the word erotic to mean one particular kind of attraction. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about how much you like coffee.
You want to be a little careful with that, because not everybody will understand, because not everybody heard the sermon.
So out of all, I thought the idea of how we got to a Valentine's Day was pretty good. Did you read on to find out how Claudius did Valentine in?
I didn't. I thought he was beheaded. No.
Yes, eventually, but he took him out, and he told him that if he kept messing around, he was gonna behead him, but he was gonna beat him with clubs first. So they beat him with clubs first and then beheaded him. And I was like, wow, that's like just. I mean, I guess. Maybe you could have flipped that. Might have made me happier.
Claudius is not a very nice guy, huh?
No, that's what I said. I was like...
That's why it's not Claudius Day.
And by the way...
Well, there might be a Claudius Day, but it probably don't send cards. Don't let them know you're coming.
Surprise effect.
There we go. Wow, we are definitely feeling happy today. All right. I do have to do a little bit of a mea culpa, though, here, because I got a text message from one of our amazing church members who set me straight. I thought I put a picture up on the screen of Claudius. I put up a picture. I'm showing everybody this picture. It's the one that I sent to our graphic design team, and they used it. But this person said, that's the wrong Claudius.
Uh-oh.
The Claudius I put up was Nero's predecessor and lived in the 50s, in the 50s. And so that is, for everybody here in the studio, that is the picture of the real Claudius. And I'm sure you can tell the difference.
The real Claudius has better hair.
Better hair. And so anyway, I just want to say I'm sorry. I did not mean to put the wrong picture up of the wrong Claudius and to impugn his character as killing Valentine. So maybe in the show notes, Randy, if I forward this to you, you can put the picture of the real Claudius so that people know what it is. And I think it's important when you know. Yeah,
no, for sure.
You don't get it right, that you let people know,
I mean, if we're not historically correct when we know we're supposed to be, how can we even move forward? Esther Howland, so she's the person we can all just, Yeah,
Esther. when you pay $7 or $9.95 for a piece of paper,
it's pretty though.
Pretty words on it. You can thank Esther Howland for that one.
I mean, who thought of putting? I mean, in the first place, who was the one that thought about putting lace on a card?
Well, that was before her. That's been happening for a while.
Yeah.
But she's the one who figured out how to mass produce that stuff and make it affordable for the everyday person. Because before that, Valentine's cards were really mainly for people who had an extensive amount of money. And sometimes things go in circles, because now we're back to that. So, Melanie, it was you that was sharing with me that you have something that you do with that Valentine's Day cards. Do you want to talk about that or no?
Does it involve a lighter?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Well, and I'm sure we are not the only ones that have ever done this, but we will go to a card shop and I'll just take a picture of the one that I would buy if I was going to buy the card, and then send it.
Yeah.
And then I receive a picture of one in return.
That's amazing.
I don't know. Maybe that's some sort of fraudulent thing, but I feel like I've spent enough on Valentine's Day that it would average out.
But you're being a good steward of resources.
Well, let me ask you, maybe. Yeah. You know what though? Does it say in the card section that no photography, please?
It does not say that.
I don't know.
And I have never had anyone ask me to not take a picture. And so,
can you write on it and then put it back? Or is that too far?
That's too far.
That might be too far. Lucas says it's too far.
But I'm sure with a little bit of Lucas, we could probably use a little AI just to write the message on the inside of the card already, right? So
he could do it with disappearing.
Just print a room in my head now.
I feel like that is definitely going too far.
Lucas goes to AI and says, "Create for me a card."
There you go.
Specific to my beloved.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just spits out poetry and pictures and lace and all kinds of things.
Yeah. There's not much aura, though.
You know that
when you do it like this.
That's the funny thing, though, because everybody said that when everything went digital, that the greeting card industry was going to be in trouble, and it hasn't been.
No,
people send cards more than before, and the whole e-greet stuff.
When it first came out,
really,
and it's like, oh, no one's going to send that. Who's going to use mail?
And now we're kind of going retro, right? People are kind of reverting back to some of the older ways of communication, the more personal.
Yeah, I was just reading a news story today about that. Like, there's a growing trend of people that will respond to like an obvious AI email or post or something like that with the AI / DR. AI didn't read.
That's nice.
So basically, if you're going to just use AI, I'm not going to bother to read it because you didn't really write it anyway. So,
well, someone had to put the prompt in. I mean, it's got to be credit for the prompt.
It took quite a while to get that prompt right.
Well, yeah. Well, unless you're Lucas.
It takes a lot to do a good prompt, man.
That's true. Well, I feel like, too, when the e.com, whatever, greeting cards came out, I feel like that's when spammers are like, suckers. This is how we're going to plant spyware and Trojan horses and everything else into your computer because you clicked on an e-card.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the start of our downfall. Anyway.
Makes sense to me.
So if in the New Testament, if this word is used 0 times.
0.
How many in the Old Testament, and why would one preclude the other? Just a passing of time or a different culture?
The Old Testament's written in Hebrew.
Okay.
So the New Testament's written in Greek. So in the Greek language, there are these 4 main words for love that we're going to be talking about. There's Eros that we talked about this week. Next week, we're talking about Philia, which is brotherly love. The week after that, Storge, which is kind of the familial type of love that occurs because you're in a family. And then finally, the last one is agape, which is the most extensively used word for love in the Bible. It's the one that shows up in 1 Corinthians 13.
So no brother companion word in Hebrew that would be like Eros Hebrew?
Not that I know of, but I'm not a Hebrew scholar, so.
Nor am I.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lucas?
I guess we need a bigger team, Randy.
No. Okay. All right.
Far from it.
Well, I was just thinking,
we'll have to branch out and see if we can hire a New Testament theologian and a Old Testament theologian to be on staff. If you're interested in working for $5 a year, let me know. We'll bring you on immediately.
I just thought it was really weird that
we don't have full benefits, but we do have a first aid cabinet. So which got you covered.
All the Band-Aids from paper cuts you could possibly want. We have you taken care of.
And if it really gets dull, we have a defibrillator you can play with.
Wow, this is going to interesting places today. I don't know.
Well, it's all about the heart. I think that's probably where we are.
We've lost Lucas.
Sorry.
Is there any correlation to like the different, or is like Hebrew like love is love? Is there a sexual reference, like kind of like Eros a little bit, or a like brotherly love, or is it just like in Hebrew love is love?
I can only think of one word for love right now, and that's God's love, loving kindness, kind of the broad
Hesed.
Hesed,
yeah, there you go.
Because it's kind of weird. Like there's, if God is love, the thing that made me think of it is God is love, and we have how many names for God? Like 13, isn't it? Like Yahweh.
We have lots and lots
and lots. Yeah. So I just kind of was wondering if, since God is love, that maybe. Not in the same way.
I do have a handy dandy search tool on my phone.
You do? Oh,
I do.
But the one thing that when you were talking about C.S. Lewis, Ken, they're looking up some interesting facts here. C.S. Lewis, you said, argues that Eros should be how we should love, kind of like how we should love God, and a reflection of how God loves us, so intense and passionate. And then
he says it's a shadow.
Yeah.
It's a shadow. So
I really like that, though,
Yeah.
like thinking about that in how I should love God. So what's the verdict?
we're
Looking up.
We're consulting.
consulting our Hebrew dictionaries here. And it looks to me like, from the quick research that we're doing, is that ancient Hebrew lacks a direct one-to-one equivalent to the Greek philosophical concept of Eros.
Gotcha.
The closest term is, I don't know, I actually never took Hebrew. So Melanie, how do you say that? Dude?
Something like that.
Something
yes.
the closest equivalent, and I wish we had Zed on here right now. He could set us
right?
straight.
Yep.
Is the word DOD in Hebrew, and it's used heavily in Song of Songs. Unlike Eros, though, which often emphasizes longing, Dode refers specifically to sexual love, caressing, and the physical manifestations of affection. So the answer is not. There isn't really a one-to-one, as is often the case across languages,
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so, and by the way, I got that information right off of Google. So
Okay.
that's a Google search that gave me that info.
Huh.
So you might want to do a little bit more serious research.
You mentioned the Song of Solomon and how the Jewish people, in some cases, just feel like that is like this extreme idea that, or not idea, but this like how God sees us and how God loves us so
Passionately,
passionately, intimately, almost in the best way you could possibly say it. And to think about all the different ways that God loves us. I don't know. This has been on my mind since you mentioned it, with the C.S. Lewis quote, and then about Song of Solomon, and then with what you just read there with the word that the dode or dod or whatever the pronunciation. But it made perfect sense when you followed up with Jacob and Rachel. I'm like, how motivating could this possibly be? And then you said Jacob and Rachel, and I'm like, oh man. 7 years of labor,
which actually turned into 14. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I abbreviated the story just for the sake of the sermon. It was already going long, but yeah.
And I don't know if I don't think the second 7 were as fast as the first 7, I'm guessing.
I don't know. Those newlywed years can go quick.
Yeah. What did he get? No.
Yeah.
He only had to wait an extra week, but then he had to work the 7 years.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He didn't have to wait the final. Yeah. No, you're probably right there.
Yeah, so he works for 7 years, and then he's allowed to get married. Laban fools him and gives him his oldest daughter, Leah. And then when Jacob complains about that, Laban's like, hey, not cool for the oldest sister not to get married before the youngest sister. So you get it, right? And but if you work for another 7 years for me, I'll let you marry her younger sister in a week. You just have to, spend this week with Leah, and then you can have Rachel.
I don't know. This is one of those Bible stories that no matter how many times you hear it and think about it and try to sort it out in your head, at least from our perspective, living in,
I wouldn't want to be any of those characters in that story.
No, and you think to yourself, 7 years. I mean, maybe this is, culturally, it's. I guess I probably am not getting it all right or understanding or just going like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, if someone was like, hey, sorry, you like 7 years? Oh man, 7 years. I mean, that would. Not that, I mean, if Heather's dad had said that, I mean, I probably would have, because I was pretty Eros, madly in love. So I guess I probably would have. I don't know.
I mean, the answer is yes, Randy.
Well, I mean, of course the answer is yes. But when you
Heather, he meant
he was very
100%.
emphatic.
He was very emphatic.
Well, no,
he loves you more than coffee.
But when you think about that and just that just seems to be a heavy ask and a heavy lift to complete the ask. And then it's still, I mean, I guess, because that was still, I mean, the multiple marriages weren't like a weird thing at that time. That was still normal, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess to that point, but then, I don't know.
Can you imagine the spousal arguments that took place? Like, I worked 14 years for this.
Oh, man. I was just thinking, like, even if you have...
Yeah, that would be kind of somewhat of a trump card, wouldn't it be? Like, I worked for 14 years so that we could be married. So I think that you can take the trash out right now. I think, is that too much to ask?
but then you think about your spouse. Do they have a brother or a sister or whatever? And like, can you imagine that? I mean,
I think the answer is no. Let's move on.
Yeah,
no.
I can't.
And interestingly to me, what's really interesting to me is you take this story and you have Jacob, who is married to two sisters. And when Moses comes along, when God lays down the law at Mount Sinai, one of the things that is absolutely included in that law is you may not have two sisters married to the same guy. That is not okay. Don't do it. And there's a part of me that thinks that this is one of the real reasons why, because of the deep problems that these marriages, the marriage that happened, that there is so much pain and anguish that went through this. You have Joseph sold into slavery. You have just all this. It's just so messy. And so whenever you feel like your family is a mess, just read through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and there is no shortage of mess in that, and especially Jacob. Jacob is just really a really messy story from the beginning to the end, where mom chooses one favorite, dad chooses one favorite. They're competitive. Jacob's trying to cheat Esau out of the birthright. Esau doesn't care enough. He doesn't care a bowl of lentils over his birthright. He's willing to sell it for that. He doesn't. The Bible says he despised his birthright. And then you have Jacob fooling his blind father with the help of his mother. It's just, and then off you go to Uncle Laban and marry his two daughters, your first cousins, and it's just and then when Leah has all these babies, and then she stops being able to have babies, then both Rachel and Leah give Jacob their maidservants to have children with, so that they would have children in the names of Rachel and Leah. So they give their servants to Jacob as, we'll say, wives, but that really wasn't what it was. And then they have children. So when you take the 12 tribes of Israel, that's the context of what's going on there, and it is a difficult story.
And the fact that God can redeem all of that to something that he, clearly doesn't shy away from, as you talk about the tribes and the begats and the who's and all of it. That's just that's just amazing.
And talking about Eros, like Jacob never appears to feel any Eros whatsoever for Leah. Yeah, he does for Rachel, very much so, but not for Leah. And listening to her name her children, because you start seeing what she's naming her children, is like this heartbreaking reading, because her children's names basically, and I don't have all the research right at my fingertips, but basically the children's names are basically, well, now he'll love me. Surely now he'll love me. He's got to love me now. It's basically this, well, it's the complete idea of Eros, that if I do enough, if I'm worthy enough, then you have to love me because I'm beautiful, or I've done something beautiful, or I've done something special. Therefore, you must love me.
You have to.
And it just doesn't seem like it ever quite gets there for Leah. The closest thing that we get, and this is fascinating to me, when Jacob dies, he asks to be buried with Leah.
Really? I don't remember that part of the story.
Yeah.
Wow.
Leah, so Rachel dies in childbirth, and she's buried by a tree along basically a trade route. And when Jacob dies in Egypt, he doesn't ask to go be buried by that tree. He asks to go be buried with where Abraham and Sarah are buried. And probably, I think Isaac and Rachel were there as well. But he has to be buried, and I think it's the cave of Machpelah. Is that the correct one, or is it?
I don't remember.
But he has to be buried in a cave where he says where Leah is buried. And so
is that some love bloomed after Rachel's death, or is that a lifetime of guilt speaking?
Yeah, I was just going to say, is that
where Grandpa and Dad are buried? Yeah. I don't know. There's a part of me that really wants to believe that somewhere along the line, Jacob realized that Leah as a human being was worthy of love, and that he had made a horrible mistake in the way he'd gone about treating her. And, in those times, people did not get married for love. They got married to solidify family alliances. They got married for a whole host of reasons, but like the romantic kind of love really wasn't usually a major part of the equation at the beginning. But there was this kind of expectation that you would grow into that would become a part of things. For instance, when Isaac sees Rachel for the first time, the servants bringing her back from Laban's house, Laban's sister Rachel comes in, and she meets Isaac out in this field. And Isaac, it says he took her to his mother's tent.
Rebecca.
Did I say Rebecca? I'm sorry. I don't know what. Yeah. Rebecca, thank you. Mm-hmm. And just edit all that out. All the last, I've said Rachel a million times when I meant Rebecca. And he takes Rebecca into his mother's tent. And he says that she comforted him and he loved her, basically. And so there's this idea that in those times, while you might not marry because you were in love, that once you did get married, you did find this Eros, you did find this love and this attraction. And for Leah, for Rachel and Jacob, it was from the get-go. And in Ken's happily ever after version of the story, I'd love to think that Jacob recognized that there was an important beauty and worth to Leah, and that in the end, that's where he chose to be buried. And there's something poetic about that's what happened. So
I like it. Let's go with that.
I know we took the long way kind of to get here, but what you just described might be the best descriptor of Eros that you, through using an example that everyone kind of knows the story, and even though it's really, really messed up, but to see that, like, because is it Anders?
Anders.
Anders. I spelled it wrong.
Nygren.
Yeah. Saying that Eros is driven by like the worth of the object. Beautiful things are worthy, and of course the opposite's true for those things that aren't. But I feel like that is so subjective but it's hard to not, like, if you're Leah, it's hard to not feel that way.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Eros, is that it is subjective. It's very subjective, and it's very subject to change too. But because, if you've ever had, and I'll use the illustration I use. You've probably heard me say it before, but when I was going to be a student missionary in New Zealand, somebody said, "Hey, Ken, in the first week or two that you're there, take as many pictures as you possibly can." And I said, "Okay, why?" And they said, "Because after a week or two, it'll become your normal, and it won't, like, what you thought was so beautiful will just be kind of become your normal." And in fact, sometimes that once you obtain something that you wanted, it really loses its value. For example, one of the tragic stories in the story of David, another one, a tragic story, is when one of his sons falls in lust, and I'll just say that falls in lust with one of David's daughters. So he falls in love with his half sister, and he just has to have her. He has to have her. So he finally takes her by force and rapes her. And once he does that, the Bible says that he hates her more afterwards than he loved her before.
Wow.
And that's one of the dangerous things about Eros, is that it's so subject to change so quickly, because it's based on a feeling. It's based on what's going on right now in my life. And so once you have obtained it, maybe you don't even think it's beautiful anymore. Maybe you don't think it has worth, and therefore you throw it away, you discard it. And it's and what does that do? And it's one thing when it's a favorite food that you get sick of and you just decide not to eat anymore, or a painting that you enjoyed looking at in your house and you decide to trade it out for something else. It's another thing altogether when it's a human being. When it's a human being created in the image of God, that you suddenly say, oh, you're not worth anything more because you don't attract you. I'm not attracted to you anymore. I don't feel this for you. I don't whatever. And sometimes we hear this in a physical sense. Well, you're not the same person. You don't look the same as when I was first attracted to you. You've changed physically. And sometimes we hear it. It's not so much that, but you're not exactly the same person that I married. Your personality has changed. Things about you have changed in significant ways. And again, like I tried to say in church, and I hope it came through. That can be difficult, because those things, when somebody's personality changes a lot, you're like, well, that's not the person that I signed up for, I mean, I think we all can be like, well, yeah, when somebody's looks change, that's shallow. But personality, that's a hard thing when somebody's personality drastically changes. And it can happen in relationships. But the thing for me is that we have to put is, what about when my personality drastically changes? What about when I physically change? I still want to be loved. I still want to be appreciated. I still want to be wanted. Even though I know that things are not, I want to still be valued. And that's the scary part for all of us, I think, as human beings, is we just have this deep down desire to be loved in spite of ourselves, not for what's best about me, what's most attractive about me, but in spite of what's least attractive and about that. And that is where that's where Eros is going to fall short. It's a beautiful kindling to get a fire going. But if all you ever do is burn kindling, you go through a lot of kindling, and generally you're going to run out and the fire will die. And so you have to find something that's going to be greater than. Yeah. It's going to be greater than just the kindling. It's got to be something that can have more permanence, that fire can really take place and in a controlled way continue on. And so I think that's one of the things that we have to think about. And it's one of the things that we hear a lot, that I think as a pastor I hear more often than I wish, but I also understand. But you'll hear people say, oh, I'm just not in love with this person anymore. I'm just not in love anymore. And so it's one of those really difficult conversations to say, well, okay, what happens when somebody feels that way about you? Yeah. Is love really just about the feeling? If it is, then what does that do to stability in all of our lives? Yeah, not just, sure, we all want the stability of knowing that people love us no matter what. And the question is, are we willing to give that stability back? Are we willing to be that way? And that is the difficult part. And it's a difficult thing to work through. It's one of the reasons why marriage counselors really earn their paychecks, because it's a hard thing. And I wouldn't want to sit here and say it's easy to just choose to be in love or choose love. It's hard. It's hard sometimes.
So does love then mature into duty and obligation?
I think to my thought about it is, yes and. I think that ideally it does mature into those things, and it matures into respect, and it matures into controlled passion, and that sort of thing. And I don't think that, there are some couples that it seems like they keep that youthful Eros the entirety of their married life. I've run into couples that, they've been married for 50 and 60 years, and they act like teenagers meeting each other for the first time. And then I meet other couples that's not the experience that I see, but I can tell that they're deeply in love with each other. They have a different kind of mature love where they have a deep respect, a deep affection for, a deep care for. They've lived their life together. They've seen the world together, and they find joy and something deeper than just that initial rush of hormones that pop off in your brain and give you these ecstatic feelings of whatever. Again, those aren't bad. I think God put them there in us. I think He wanted us to feel attraction. But again, for me, it comes down to how you choose to contain them.
Yeah. Well, I think it no matter, like you said, whether it duty, obligation, family. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can find together that mean more than anything to you.
Yeah, and let's be honest, nobody wants to be like, I love you out of duty and obligation.
No.
That doesn't.
But it's not going to flow well on a Valentine's Day card.
But dear Valentine, my duty and obligation compel me to write this note to you, letting you know that because of my duty and obligation, I have a love for you. Yeah, no, that's probably not going to.
I would also
it's not on the best-selling Valentine list.
I would also take duty and obligation as a piece of the puzzle where we did come before God and say that we were going to do
for better or worse,
for worse, the hard stuff, the good stuff, and sometimes it's not the best. So I would take duty and obligation before not. Just like, I don't have any duty or obligation to you. So I think that can get spread with almost as a dirty word, just like Eros, where you're just like, well, it's just passion. So that's just sexual in nature. So we can just paint that with, we're over that. But at the same time, when you have all of them together, maybe in differences in percentages, we were goofing in the car on Saturday after this, and Heather said something about, I listened to Ken's sermon. And I was like, I'll just take the Eros. That's what I want. It was obviously said as a joke. And then a couple of minutes, I caught her looking at me, and she said something to the effect that I was good looking or something.
Aww.
Now I'll take that any day of the week, whether there's some duty, maybe there's a percentage of that's duty and obligation, because once you're married for 26 years, right? That's a long time. There is duty and obligation that goes along with raising a family and keeping a house together and, all those things. So I wonder sometimes if we just take the other part and go, well, this isn't necessarily the best. And like you said, you can run out of all of those. You can run out of kindling. You can run out of duty, obligation. You can run out of everything. So,
I remember listening to a radio program, 10 or 15 years ago, where the host was talking about research. And I haven't looked up this research, so just take it with the big asterisk on this that I don't. But the person on the radio show is talking about how many marriages, I think they were a marriage counselor, they're talking about couples that would come in and feel like their marriage was over. Like, I don't feel anything anymore. I'm done with this. I want to be done. And they said that the couples, I think they said like 80% of couples that stuck it out for a year, at the end of that year, they were glad that they did. And they had recovered some kind of feeling when, sounds like they were probably doing some counseling along the way as well. But the point that the person on the radio is trying to make is that a lot of times we give up pretty quick on our love for each other. We say, well, I'm not feeling it today, so and I'm not feeling it tomorrow, and it's been 2 weeks, it's been 3 weeks, it's been 4 weeks, it's been 6 months, whatever, and people will give up. And I'm not a big fan of duty and obligation being the only thing behind things, but then there's also a part of me that says there is also a stick-to-itiveness through difficult times, that things can get hard and it can be difficult at times, and being able to stick with it is important. And important in the sense that like going back and just saying it again, we all want to be loved unconditionally. And the question is, do we want to give that kind of love as well?
Well, I think a lot of times too, you end up with, you see people that we all look at relationships and we see what we see. So we're in on what we're allowed to be in on. We draw our own conclusions as to who might be, happy, who might still have that spark in their relationship, who might not be. Who knows? But it always, and this is just life in general, and maybe even worse, definitely worse during the social media age, the grass always looks greener somewhere else until you stop to think about what would that person actually think about me if they knew me as well as my spouse knows me, right? or the person that you see that, is like, I couldn't do it. And, there, again, we only see what we see. There could be a ton of really solid reasons behind why someone decides to get divorced. And they meet somebody new and, and then it's like, oh yeah. And it's like, well, don't forget, they're still in the honeymoon phase, right? Like, let's check in another in another down the road. And then sometimes it works really, really well. So I just think it's so subjective, all of it. And it's just like, if you got lucky and found someone awesome, then do whatever you can.
One of the statistics that really always hit me was the percentage of first marriages that last, the percentage of second marriages that last or end in divorce, and then the percentage of third marriages. And the statistics change a little bit. Right now, what I'm seeing online is that about 41 to 43% of first marriages in the U.S. end in divorce. And then the number of what do you think about second marriages, up or down? You think second marriages
less successful?
So 60 to 67% of second marriages fail. And then about 70 to 73% of third marriages end in divorce. So, I think there's your natural inclination would be, well, you figure out during that first marriage and then you get it figured out for the second marriage. You're like, okay, now I know what I was doing wrong. Now I know what, and I know who I'm really looking for. But statistically, it doesn't bear out that way, because generally what happens is in marriages, we definitely tend to be trying to find somebody to heal what's broken in us. And generally, that's not really what's going to happen. The person's going to come along and be a sandpaper to what's wrong. And sandpaper doesn't feel good when it's being applied. And I think that that's one of the beauties of marriage, that if we allow some of the sandpaper effects of having to live with another person who's different than us and who helps take off our rough edges, if we're willing to go through that, some of the pain that can be, it actually makes us a much better person on the other side. But a lot of times we don't want to stick around for that. We don't. That's not fun. And we were like, no thanks.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And that's why I think what happens is people get out of a first marriage and they go to a second marriage, and they kind of usually are looking for that same kind of person again. And they wind up being back where they were before.
Speaking of asterisks, I think we should put a big asterisk here, as long as it's not an abusive situation.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Melanie. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And let's definitely put that on there, because that's a completely different kind of thing. And I definitely want to be clear. I'm talking about where we end marriages not because of abuse, not because of unfaithfulness, but we're just tired of it. Just had enough. I'm done. And that's really the kind I'm talking about. And let me go ahead and say one more thing. If you've been in that kind of marriage and that happened, I want you to know that, hey, I'm not judging you. I'm not here to tell you, I have not lived your life, so I don't understand what it was like to be you and go through what you were going through or anything like that. And so one of the things I want you to know is that truly here at Whole Life, we love you. We care about you. We're here for you. At the same time, I think it's important for us to speak truth about things that matter and have these kind of conversations, knowing that you're not going to be excluded just because of some of the life decisions that you've made.
Yeah, absolutely. Ones that in Christianity sometimes can carry a pretty big stigma.
Yeah.
But Lucas, questions. How many? What do
we got? 3 questions here. So first one, what form does religion take in an Eros paradigm? What does God look like through Eros eyes?
I feel like I want Melanie to answer this one, and I want to go ahead and say, I definitely did not understand the question. I
was feeling like maybe you were answering a different question.
It's so funny. I went up to somebody else and they thought, I just thought you were being funny.
I thought so too. I was waiting for the second half of the answer. Like, okay, here's what I really meant, but it never happened.
What did I miss?
This was during second service.
Okay, I missed it.
Yeah.
And I went on my own tangent. I think I must have made up the question that I wanted to answer as opposed to the question that was being asked.
That's all right.
If in all fairness, I went home after church and slept for about 4 or 5 hours because I felt like I was in a fever dream at the end of, I don't know. Anyway, there may have been some. Anyway, but yeah. So read the question one more time for me because I want to see if I can actually understand it now.
What form does religion take in an Eros paradigm? What does God look like through Eros eyes?
Mm-hmm.
So let me start it. I think what happened is I started thinking about the answer with the first half of the question and didn't listen to the second half. So what does Eros look like through God's eyes?
What form does religion take in an Eros paradigm?
Right.
And what does God look like through Eros eyes?
So through Eros eyes, I think I often see this when we introduce the gospel to somebody who's never experienced it before. And they immediately see the worth. They see how amazing God is. They see the peace. They see all the joy. And immediately they go out and they want everybody else to know about it. They're talking to everybody. It's just like, when you first fall in love with that special person, you want all the meaningful people in your life to meet them and to know them because their life is going to be changed by knowing them. And I think that's kind of through the Eros eyes. That's one of the ways that you would experience God is you see all the beauty and all the wonder and the amazing. But then perhaps you get to a place like one of the people who asked a question last week and they said, I feel like God isn't listening. I'm trying to connect and I'm not feeling that anymore. And I think that's the part where that love experience has to transform into another form of love. You have to transform it it needs to transform out of Eros into agape or maybe even into Philia in some sense of the word. And we're going to talk about those things a little bit more later. But that's where the love kind of has to transform itself and become more of an abiding love. And I'd probably prefer the word abiding to obligation.
I like that.
And so that's that Eros thing. But what if God was all about Eros? And that's what I was trying to answer because that's the kind of the way I heard it. What if God loved us with an Eros kind of love? If that was the primary love for God that God had for us. Well, if the primary kind of love was Eros, then as long as we were good, as long as we were loving, as long as we did nice things, then God would like us because we would have worth. We'd be worthy of love.
The flood was it.
Yeah.
It ended at the flood.
There. And so if that was it, then as soon as we did something ugly, as soon as we didn't keep the promises that we made when we got baptized, as soon as we did things that weren't, then God would be like, well, that you don't have worth anymore, so I'm done with you. And I think that is a mistake that some religions or some sects of Christianity make, is that they give God an Eros love instead of an agape love. That they make God very transactional. If you're good, then if you're beautiful, if you do lovely things, then you're worthy of God. Then you get to have a relationship with God because God sees your value and he cannot deny it, and he must go ahead and love you because you have value. And so the importance of this is that God is passionate. I think that God does have Eros love for us. I think he loves us deeply and profoundly, and there's this passion in it. But I think it also is not just simply an Eros love, that it is an abiding love that we find in agape or in hesed that we talked about, the Hebrew love, which means an unfailing kind of love.
Well, and even then, it's God who ascribes the worth.
Correct.
To begin with, it's not something that we can drum up for ourselves. God ascribes us the worth, and then loves that beautiful thing about us.
So you told me on Sabbath you were going to disagree with me in podcast. So
yeah, I was going to disagree with you because I thought we were going to take everybody on a legalistic journey of damnation.
well,
when you put your answer in a context, then it makes much more sense. And when you answer the second question as well, it makes much more sense.
Awesome.
Well, that's that I have diagnosed a flaw in myself, and that I need to make sure I listen all the way through the question.
Well, maybe next time I ask you one question at a time instead of two in a row. See, we can all learn from this, Ken.
Oh, man.
All right. Question number 2. When talking about something like sex or love between partners, is whole life more conservative or secular in their views?
That's
So read it one more time because I want to make sure I heard it.
When talking about something like sex or love between partners, is whole life more conservative or secular in their views?
I think there was also because I did ask a couple of clarifying questions later in the chat of the person who asked that question, because I was curious what does this mean to you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit. I don't know if you have access to that.
I don't have the context here.
Okay.
If you remember,
there's a little bit more. I think the question this person was asking in a church that they have attended. Their perception was the church felt that sex was bad and premarital sex was the end of the world. And so I think they were kind of wondering what kind of a stand we take on that. And so that was the extra piece of the question.
Thanks for a great question. And I feel like this is one of those ones where I would just wish I had you here in the room so we could have a conversation rather than me just kind of blurting out an answer. I want to say this in a way that will land with you and that makes sense. When you say conservative in your question, there's a part of me that immediately is like, I want to be careful because I don't like using terms like conservative or liberal. Why I don't like using them is because I personally have a belief that we should be basing our ideas off of biblical principles. But I also recognize when I say biblical principles that for many people that's also sounds like a judgment. Yeah. That as soon as you say, we base what we think off of biblical, and some people are like, well, your interpretation of the Bible, but truly where I want to come down on these kind of questions is on the side of what the Bible has to say. And it feels to me like the Bible puts a premium on relationship and faithful relationship. And so what I would tell you is I think that whole life comes down on the idea that sex is a beautiful gift from God that is sacred, and is reserved for a permanent committed relationship. And I think that's an important part of that. Jesus talks about it. The Bible talks about it. And I think that in the world that we live in, that often sex isn't treated as sacred. And that would be what I would consider to be a more secular view of sex, that sex is just simply a physical act that has no other repercussions other than enjoyment, and oftentimes in that enjoyment for one person, and if the other gets enjoyment out of it, great, but really it's just about what I get out of it. And I don't believe that's a biblical view. I don't believe that. I believe that would be what we would, consider to be a selfish viewpoint of, well, what do I get out of it? And I don't really care what happens to you. And so that's one of the reasons why I think the Bible takes some of the stands it does on sexuality and on sex, is that in the committed relationship, because outside of a committed relationship, there's a lot of pain that can occur. That sex isn't just a physical act. It just isn't. It is very much, there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of things go into that. You just ask the survivors of abuse about that. It's when done improperly, it can be horrifically painful. And so that's why I think it's really important that we have these conversations. And one of the things I want to encourage parents, while I've got you here, and maybe you got a little warning a little bit earlier, you've got to talk to your kids about what your values are and your views are on sex. And you need to do it sooner rather than later. I know that you probably think, well, I'll talk to them, when they get into their teenage years. You really need to start having these talks about sex at a very, very early age, because there are a lot of predators out in the world. And when you're not specific with your kids, it's very easy for predators to take advantage of your children, because your children don't know what's right and what's good for them and what's safe, and how to have a conversation with you. Your kids need to know that they can come to you at any time and have this conversation without you freaking out and without you making it uncomfortable for them to have that conversation. And Rochelle and I have made a lot of mistakes in raising our children, but one of the things I'm very proud of is that we really have, from a very early age, talked to our kids about this topic in an age-appropriate way. And if you're looking for there's all kinds of age-appropriate material out there. If you need some help finding that, reach out to myself. Rochelle has a ton of this kind of information that I can pass on to you if you're looking for that material. But there are ways to have age appropriate. You don't need to, when your kids are at 4 and 5 and 6, that's not the time to have the, graphic detail about things, but it is a time to have a certain kind of conversation with them that helps them understand that you can have this. And I don't have time to do a whole talk on this, the whole TED talk on this, but one of the things that's important is to use the correct terms for anatomy. A lot of times we'll throw out these cutesy terms because the other terms are dirty somehow. If you say penis or you say vagina, we use other names for those body parts, and so kids are taught at a kind of an early age that there's something wrong with them, so we have to use a different word. And then what happens is again, people who can be predatory will come along and prey on that vulnerability. And so again, my encouragement is you've got to talk to your kids. I remember doing a sermon a number of years ago talking about pornography in a church that I was a pastor of, and I had a parent come to me very concerned that I had that conversation in church. I think it was appropriate. They disagreed with me. And they said, my 11-year-old son does not need to be hearing about this. This isn't something they're having to deal with. And I said, I'm going to beg to disagree with you. Your 8-year-old son would probably be dealing with this. And here's the thing, if you're not having the conversation about pornography with your children, trust me, their peers are, they're finding things. And again, I have worked with kids that were homeschooled. I remember having one homeschooled teen who went through incredible mental distress to the point of self-harm. And this teen was homeschooled, not around other kids, and homeschooled. And in a brief moment where they weren't where a parent stepped out of the room for a brief amount of time, this teen found pornography, not on purpose, but by accident, and then would start sneaking it and figured out how to. And so my point is that we sometimes have this idea, if we just protect our kids enough, if we just go ahead and put enough barriers around them, they're not going to be able to find this stuff. It's not going to get there. And my strong encouragement, and we are not going to have that hard conversation where I have to use the words penis and vagina and sex with my kids, and I won't have to say those things. And here's the thing. You've got to have those conversations. You want to have the conversation with your kids, and you don't leave it to teachers. Don't leave it, even Christian school teachers, don't leave it to them. You have the conversation. You teach them the values that are important to you. You pass those things on to them so that they can hear it from the people that they should be able to trust the most in their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's we had someone come and give a talk at Forest Lake years ago, and it was controversial just as much as it was probably at your church. And the research that he brought as an expert was like, if you're not having the talk by 8 or 9, someone else has already had it with them, and now they're using that terminology, and you would hope that the words you just used were the ones they'd use and not the ones that they're using. And then there's implications of what does this mean? What does that mean? How do we protect ourselves even if we make a bad choice? Let's make a better choice than a horrible choice. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of levels to everything, and just being informed helps.
Well, even health related, because there's a lot of information out there, but there's a lot of misinformation, especially if, kids are passing information among themselves. And that's one thing. We always had an open conversation, dialogue with our boys when they were growing up. And, if I overheard, some comment or something that one of their friends made, and I would talk to them later and say, hey, you know what? I overheard this. That's not accurate. And so, I think being able to be in a situation where kids feel comfortable asking questions, it can save some hardship in the future.
Yeah, you want your kids to come ask you about that. And the other thing that I'd just like to put out there as well is, please also don't make sex something dirty or shameful. It's not. It's a God-given gift. It's a beautiful part of marriage. It's a beautiful thing. And so my encouragement to you is that a lot of times when we treat sex as if it's something shameful, there's a whole generation of kids that have been raised that are almost afraid of it, and they're not sure what to,
Yeah.
And so, or they go to the exact opposite range because they're like, "My mom and dad were lying to me. There's nothing wrong. This is good stuff."
Yeah.
And so God created romantic love. He created sexual attraction. These are all things that are God-given gifts. And again, it's just that fireplace, metaphor that I share that's been used by tons of pastors. But it's, if you keep the fire in the fireplace, it's wonderful and a great thing. You take that same fire, take some coals and put them on underneath the drapes on the carpet.
Yeah.
You're going to have yourself a house that's burned down. And part of being a parent, part of that responsibility is helping your kids understand how God intended for things to be and what brings happiness and true worth in life. And those are things that I think matter an awful lot.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Final one.
What do you think led David to use love in an objectifying manner? And what could he have done to prevent it?
Wow. Yeah.
So what caused David to use love in an objectifying manner?
Yes. And what could he have done to prevent it?
Well, I think like a lot of people, David knew exactly what he was doing when he was walking on top of his palace and was looking over the city. I think he had a good idea. He might be able to see something that wasn't his to be looking at. And I think that certainly when he saw Bathsheba taking a bath on top of her roof, he had an opportunity right there to turn around and walk away. to walk and to turn his head, look in the opposite direction. And one of the major, I think, ugly parts of certain parts of Christianity is this idea that men can't help themselves. Oh, well, he's a guy. He can't help himself. He's full of hormones and he can't. What was he going to do? Come on. We can help ourselves. We can say no. We can turn around. We can look the other way. We can look where we're supposed to be looking. We can make those choices. And I think it's a cop out as when we're like, oh, well, she was showing stuff, so I had to, what was I going to do? Well, you know what, David, you could turn around and walk in the opposite direction. You certainly didn't need to call her to your house. Yeah. You knew who she belonged to. It was because he was out there fighting a war for you right then, putting his life on the line for you, and you're living in the comfort of your palace that he's defending while he's gone. And so David allowed the Eros, the attraction, the beauty, to be the motivating factor in the choices that he was making, rather than to control his choices and say, I do find that attractive, but that's not mine.
Yeah. Even if you're in the camp, I know I did a sermon on this once and read a bunch into it. And even if you're in the camp that's like, well, Bathsheba she knew what she was doing and she was the one trying to entice the king because she wanted the king. And even if that were true, like you said, it's still, and even if you looked, you can still turn the other way and go, oops, shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, even if that were true.
Yeah.
I just don't, I've never been in that.
No, I'm not either. But
because Dave, like, I know that I guess she could have been enticing, but David very much makes the choice. She doesn't show up at his palace gate
exactly.
and say, hey, let me in. I want to sleep with you.
Yeah.
That's David calls her to him. And again, I don't want to take away agents from her either. Although I will say it's a pretty difficult thing when guys with weapons come to your house to pick you up and take you back somewhere. There's
telling the king no doesn't seem like a good idea.
Well, and there are nuances in the language that are pretty indicative of the fact that this was not something that she was doing by choice. They came and took her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
There were 1,000 decisions that David made to get himself to that point.
Yeah.
And at any point,
and there was 10,000 bad
ones
that came after it because of making that decision.
It led to the other story that that was also part of that. Anyway, it's a sad, that decision led to a lot of pain.
Yeah. It goes deep the farther you keep looking at it. All right. So this week we are, what did you say it was this week? Because this is number 2.
We're talking about Philia. We're talking about brotherly love. What does that mean? What does that look like? How would we apply that in the world that we live in today? How does that apply to some of the things we see in the news?
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Philanthropy.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go. Philadelphia, though, I was like, that doesn't really make sense. You ever been to Philadelphia?
I have been to Philadelphia.
Sorry, Tony. You're listening. No, I'm just kidding. Philadelphia was great. No. Okay, so then we have 2 more left. What's after that?
Philosophical.
Storge.
Oh, yeah.
Which is which is kind of.
I never can think of that one. Storge.
Storge. That's going to be kind of the love a mother has for her child.
Okay.
So it's more of a familial type of love. And then the final one is agape love.
Aw. Good deal. Are we doing like communion or something on that week?
We're doing something like we are doing our service Sabbath. So our Connected event is on that Sabbath. Right. So we're going to do something a little bit different this year in the sense that we will have a first service that's a complete service that day.
Just like normal?
Just like normal. Right. And then we are going to send people out to do service projects after.
Awesome. Cool.
That's a 9:30 service. We're
having
a 9:30 service.
Same.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Same. Not the 12.
And then one of the cool things that is going to happen before 9:30 is we're going to have a couple different prayer walks where we're going to be praying in our neighborhoods. So
I've heard rumors and rumblings. Who knew? Okay. All right. Well, that's it for this week, guys. Thanks for listening and have a great week. Thanks for listening to This Is Whole Life. If today's conversation resonated with you, we invite you to subscribe, share, and leave a review on your favorite listening platform. To join the conversation, send a text or voicemail to 407-965-1607 or email podcast@wholelife.church. To learn more about Whole Life Church, worship with us online or in person, visit our website, wholelife.church. Until next time, this is Whole Life.